Thanks for everybody for joining the Zoom call. Thank you for hanging out with Rachel, Mr. Sweater, and myself. I would be Dave Baker. I am the writer of the book Fuck Off Squad and Action Hospital, also one of the illustrators of Action Hospital. Today, we're gonna, I'm gonna introduce you guys to two of my dear friends and luminaries of the comic book medium, Rachel Dukes and Michael Sweater. Rachel hails from San Diego, California, a graduate from the Center for Cartoon Studies. They work as a cartoonist and illustrator and are the creator of cat-centric webcomic Frankie Comics, which we are going to discuss here today. Shocker. And Rachel's work has also appeared in several anthologies, including Beyond, Oath, Bottoms Up, As You Were, Timorous Beasties, and a bunch of other stuff. Clients they've worked for include Brain Quest, College Humor, Boom Studios, Lion Forge, The Nib, and others. Currently living in LA. Shocker. Shocker again, which is also where I live. Michael Sweater does not have a bio listed on his website. So this is me, Dave, in the past, writing one for him currently right now. Michael is a cartoonist of superior talent and thoughtfulness. His work includes the books, This Must Be the Place, Please Destroy the Internet, Please Destroy My Enemies, the comic, Please Destroy My Enemies, the t-shirt, which can be seen at conventions worn by punks all across the world. And he lives in some place, and he's from some other place, and he lived in Philly for a while, and he married fellow cartoonist Benji Nate at SPX, where I, Dave Baker, was a person in the room and was standing approximately 6 feet away from them, attempting not to cry because I'm a really cool person. Dear friends, we're here to discuss the Wizerd and Frankie Comics. So on that note, yes, the Wizerd. Let's start with the Wizerd, since that's the one that you held up first. Mike, Rachel, how do you describe the Wizerd for somebody who hasn't read it before?
Imagine if it was a fantasy book, but it was only the good parts and not the bad parts.
I like that description. I like that description a lot. Succinct, clear, to the point. Rachel, do you have more you want to add, or should I ask you how to describe Frankie?
It's a series about misfit adventures in a D&D style world, but it's secretly the Wizard of Oz.
I keep forgetting to talk about the Wizard of Oz when people ask about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
That's it was one of the earliest things that we discussed, though, with regard to it being episodic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meaning that it would have crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier sequels.
Yeah, and also that each of them, like, needs something that they need to gain at the end.
You know, a character arc.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, sure. Yeah, they have a goal. They have a MacGuffin, a personal MacGuffin. Rachel, how do you describe Frankie Comics to people when you're at conventions and or in real life and people ask you what your book is about?
Frankie Comics is a series of jokes and short stories that I write about my cat. It started out as a webcomic, went on to a mini comic, and is now a full-color hardcover collection out by Oni Press.
Hey!
Yeah.
That's awesome. I have other questions, but now I just want to ask, how does it feel to have seen it evolve like that and now be in its ultimate form?
It's fantastic. It's like really, really nice. And like, there's something about like, I always talk about like the size of the book and like the tactile sensation of it, but it feels really nice. Like it feels like a good collection. It's nice to hold in my hands. It's small, it's portable. There's like a bunch of sweetness in it. Like, it's everything that I really could have wanted it to be. There's literally one copy error in it, and other than that, it's perfect. It's really perfect.
Which is good for a book.
Yeah.
That's really, yeah. There's probably distinctly more than one copy error, so one is good, very good. I'm curious. I know both of you. No, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, one of the books I did with Avi, he hired a copy editor who found an error on every page of the book.
That means you're getting your money's worth for that copy editor, man. That's what they're supposed to be. That's what they're doing. That's great. I'm curious about, obviously you're both cartoonists in your own right, and you both have bodies of work independently, but you're also good friends. And I'm curious how you guys, can you guys remember the first time you met?
I know, actually, yeah, sort of, kind of. I know that we must have met like during orientation and stuff at CCS. But I pretty distinctly remember, there are two things I remember. One was there was an assignment early on where we had to do gag strips, and we were assigned like a desert island gag and like two other things, and then one was left open to our own device. And I remember Sweater's gags being very funny, and they were among like maybe 2 or 3 sets that I kept from everybody's, because we each got copies of everybody's work. And I have Sweater's and Dan Rinlow's and I think Max Riffner's and Sophie Goldstein's. I know I have for sure, because I actually just came across them the other day while cleaning. And I was like, oh, this guy's funny. And then I remember one time we hung out really early on where somebody called you by the wrong last name and you corrected them. And then I remember we went out to Queechee with Steve Bissett for something, and we had lunch together in a train car or something.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Early
Mike,
memories.
do you remember any of that, or do you?
So I don't really remember time in distinct moments like that. I remember Venture Fort.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to college together. So we were in the same town for the amount of time you go to college together for. I don't know how long I was there.
You were there for like 9 months. You were there for almost a year.
For 9 months. I don't remember. At some point in that period, we became friends.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was early. It wasn't much after the middle.
I think it was probably sometime after Halloween, because I came over to your house and somebody did it wasn't Halloween, it was the goth party that Porch House threw.
There was a goth party?
Yeah, I'll send you pictures of me and Joanna and Andy Warner. It's pretty great.
Was I there?
You came for like a minute and then bounced. You were like not having it.
To be clear, I was drawing the entire time I was there.
Oh, I don't doubt.
So I don't remember a lot, but yeah, I remember we built a fort at some point.
That was like in the summer, like near the end of year 1.
And I remember there was a project where we worked in the seniors area, the higher year area together.
Mm-hmm. You must, man, I don't know if you came in, you must have still been a student. We must have just been working in that area, because I would go work in that building sometimes.
Yeah.
I do remember that, because I kept telling you to just draw all the cats.
Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we became friends, and then we were just friends a lot after that.
Yeah.
So
I'd go down to Philly and visit, and Mike would come back and visit, and
Yeah.
And comics is a weird place where there's only 7 people, so everybody becomes really best friends, like because it's this like blood oath calling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I relate to this. That's basically my relationship with both of you as well.
Yeah. It's pretty standard for cartoonists. It's pretty normal stuff.
Speaking of cartoonists, Wizerd opens with a scroll that says, "For aspiring cartoonists of all ages, you don't need a wishing potion to create comics. Start today." Why did you both feel that it was important to open the book with that?
Mike, did you write that, or did I?
I think I wrote the first draft. I do think the general idea was mine. I don't know how we worded it, but I think it's just like the book is aimed at children, technically, even though it wasn't a pitch for a children's book. I just took out the gore, and then they said it was a children's book. But I figured if it was going to be pitched to kids, when I was a kid, I didn't know that you were just like allowed to do stuff. I didn't start drawing until I was like 19 or 20. So I thought it was just important to be like, hey, you're allowed to do this on like the front end.
Yeah. And that was the same thing for me as well, where I
Mhm.
knew it was something that I always wanted to do, but I was very preoccupied with the concept of like gatekeeping, where I was like, oh, well, I have to get good enough for someone to hire me, for, you know, me to get a job, and then I'll be published. And like, I didn't realize, oh, I could just do this. I could just do the thing. You know, I can print my own things at
Mhm.
home or at Kinko's or whatever. And that is just as valid as something printed by a publisher, you know, offset, distributed across the globe, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think most
Right.
people kind
Yeah.
of need permission to do things. And it's just a nice way to be like, hey, permission granted.
Yeah, you're good enough
Yeah.
now, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Unsurprising to anyone, I also agree with that wholeheartedly. Um, on the Frankie tip, Rachel, in the opening of the book, Frankie Comics, you depict the first time you and Mike, your partner, not this Mike, the other Mike, meet Frankie. How accurate is that to real life?
That wasn't the first time we met her. That was the first time we decided to let her in. So Frankie, the first time we met Frankie, there was a pack of stray cats living in between our apartment building and the next apartment building. And they were really loud and annoying because they were mostly feral. And I went down because I was working from home at the time, just like I am now. And I went down to like be like, are you guys in distress? What do you need? You know? And I couldn't quite get to them because of the way the buildings were laid out. And I gave up, but I could kind of see them. And so when Mike came home, I said, oh, well, did you see there's a tabby and there's a black one and there's this and that. And I was talking about all the cats. And he says, oh, well, but did you see the white one? And I said, no. And he said, well, yeah, there's this cute little white cat under one of the cars in the parking lot. And I said, I would like to see that. So we walked down and like peeked under the car. And sure enough, there was this teeny tiny little Frankie, you know, just loafed under the car, grumpy looking. And we asked her, we were like, hey, do you want to come out? Do you want to come hang out? And she was like, no. And we were like, okay, well, we'll see you later. And we went back upstairs. And that was the first time we ever met her, but she realized that people in our building were friendly. And so she would start to walk around the building and go door to door, meowing, looking for suckers to feed her. And so then we didn't know this at the time, but our neighbors and us were both feeding her and kind of letting her in and like giving her attention. And she'd show up. Our building, our apartment at the time had a huge, almost floor to ceiling window on the front of it. And she would come up, and one day it was raining. She came up to the window with her little paws and started crying in the rain, being like, hello, hello, let me in, you know? And we're like, okay, it's winter, it's starting to rain, like, she should come in and like hang out with us. And she would come in from time to time and like hang out with me during like lunchtime. I'd leave the door open because it was hot, and she'd come in and come sit and whatever. But you know, so there we probably like got to know her over a period of a month or so before we finally were like, oh, you live with us now, and like let her in for real.
And how did it transition from that into you making comics about her?
She showed up almost immediately in the journal comics that I was creating. That's how we know when we got her, was in April of 2009. But she showed up sort of in the background, in less of my foil in those. And she just showed up periodically throughout all of them. And then as I continued to make journal comics and made my way to the Center for Cartoon Studies, and then you know, during my second year, my partner, Mike, was living here in Los Angeles while I was still in Vermont. And Sweater had moved to Philly, and my other friends were all in new relationships, and everybody was working on their thesis. So I was kind of just alone with Frankie in the apartment, like existing in like existential despair. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to draw some cat comics to cheer myself up. I'm going to draw some journal comics about some stupid stuff Frankie and I have gotten into. And so that's what I started doing, was just drawing comics about Frankie to make myself laugh and to include in my thesis. and it became what it is today.
There's kind of an emotional immediacy to the work that is interesting to me, and I don't know that is in a lot of cat comics, because they have I'm not talking shit about anybody. I'm just saying a lot of cat comics, there's a formula, right? And I appreciate that Frankie, and also I appreciate the fact that your personality, Frankie's personality, and Mike's personality all come across so clearly in the work. You know, I think that makes it very compelling and easy to read. Speaking of easy to read, I'm going to read the next question on my list. This one's for both of you. In the Wizerd, the lettering is very specific and also very easy to read. It has a lot of clarity to it. Lettering, a lot of times, especially in kind of factory-produced comics, like non-cartoonist-driven comics, is terrible. Your lettering is not terrible. So I was wondering if you could talk about kind of the art of lettering and maybe the decisions behind some of the choices that you made in the Wizerd with the lettering.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the most important thing for a comic to do is be readable. Like if you can't read it, it's an illustration. So that's always, with every part of the comic, that's the first thing I think about, like the drawing, the background, the lettering. I think the lettering is basically just like standard block lettering, but done a little faster, so it's got round edges. And then I did it.
Yeah, but also, I mean, I feel like you're underplaying your skill there. Like the balloons are well placed. There's a lot of breathing room around the text. The tails are nice. Like there's all of those things are considered, and just saying like, oh, I just did it. Like, I guess that's true, but it's also, you're undervaluing the inherent skill that both of you possess in the craft that you've put into this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, to me, it's
on the spot. I'm saying it's really good.
No, I know. Well, the thing is, like,
Thank you.
lettering is like one of the, like, I got into drawing by doing lettering. Like I was doing graffiti before I did comics, so like I knew how to draw letters before I knew how to draw people. So like I've had a lot of practice, and the big thing is I think the lettering, it's just a process of all thinking about clarity and legibility no matter what, just above everything, and then trying to inject just a little bit of flavor into it without being confusing. It's weird. I never really think, I spend a lot of time thinking about lettering, but I don't think about thinking about it. So it's hard for me to talk about it.
Sure. Yeah. Rachel, do you have any insights on that?
No.
Okay. All right.
Well, also,
just trying to
the thing
give
is,
you
like,
opportunity to, you know.
So the thing is, like, with the speech balloon specifically, I have a lot of things that when I'm reading comics, I'm like actively being like, oh, I don't like that. And so it's really just, or like, oh, I like that. So it's really just like sort of like my speech balloons, like the way I lay them out is a mixture of the way like Louis Trondheim does it. And like the tails, I basically looked at, there's like this way that, the way digital comics people do now, where they don't draw the balloons, they just do the white space with the white tail. I've always kind of liked that round shape in that like white tail, and I think I was trying to replicate that in those shapes.
I think that's really interesting.
My tails are a lot rounder in the points than other people's.
I think I was unintentionally doing something similar with the way that I was doing the balloons in Frankie, where I would do the balloon and then I would just draw a line from the balloon to the character instead of actually drawing out the tail.
Yeah, I like that.
It gets the same point across. It's simple, it's clean, it's easy.
Yeah, I just really dislike that triangle shape on the bottom of a circle, unless it's like really thin.
Yeah, for me, like the rubric is like the width of the tail shouldn't be longer or wider than the crossbar of a T of whatever font you're using. So if it's like really big and chunky, then it should be larger, and if it's smaller, then it should be, basically they should be proportionally in relationship to each other, which kind of drives me crazy sometimes in, like I said, non-cartoonist driven comics, where you can tell that isn't being accounted for, and so there's just kind of like exactly what you're saying, Mike. It's just this on the bottom of a balloon, which that shape almost works incongruously with the shape of a balloon, like they're diametrically opposed. But let's continue. Let's not spend 70 years talking about lettering technique, because most people probably don't find that as interesting as the three of us. One of the things I was curious to talk to you, Rachel, about is that, Frankie as a comic that kind of bounces back and forth between panel to panel storytelling, almost kind of like floating image storytelling. It's kind of got a lot of verisimilitude inherent in the narratives. And they're also vary in length. Sometimes it's just a snapshot moment, sometimes a little bit longer. And I'm curious about how you as an author kind of played the orchestra, for lack of a better term, in terms of kind of like, how did you choose where to have those raindrops fall?
I mean, it really, let me figure out a way to say this sentence. Because the majority of what happens in Frankie Comics is based off of real events, although exaggerated, it really just came down to what was necessary to tell the moment. I have a tendency when I'm creating comics to, if you've ever seen a Chris Ware comic, where he has like 1,000 panels on a page, and it's so you can see every moment of a character's life and all the different variations of how it could have happened, and it's just like all the things, is how the comics start in my head. And I have to go, okay, well, what's actually necessary to tell the moment? And then I'll thumbnail it out in a couple of different ways and figure out, okay, I can do this in 3 panels, or okay, I'm gonna need 4 panels. Okay, this one's going to be an actual comic and take a couple of pages. But I just have to kind of figure out like what the moment actually needs on the page.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting kind of balance between, I think every cartoonist is simultaneously very analytical and emotionally intuitive, because all comics are some weird alchemy of the two, and you can kind of tell by the individual which way their brain leans more. Like you're saying, like Chris Ware is like 100% analytical with like a little bit of emotion, and that's not to say that his comics aren't emotive. They are. They're deeply personal and quite frankly really depressing. But it's like you're saying, like he's a very like almost schematic oriented, where everything is logical and follows a path. And then some people like whoever, Bill Sienkiewicz or whatever, where it's all like ink splatters and really emotion based. So it's interesting to hear you talk about that. So I love the characters in The Wizerd. They're all super charming. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about specifically The Wizerd and Princess Wallace, because I love Princess Wallace. Whoever wants to take it.
Yeah. I mean, all of my books have a very emotionally turbulent child character, just across the board. I'm basically unable to write a narrative without one, so that's just this one for this book. I just think like all fun in storytelling is based on somebody attempting to get their way and like opposing like authority in some way, and like a child is the most fun because they're gonna have an outburst that's appropriate for a child to have. And if an adult character was behaving this way, it would actually be kind of creepy. And also, basically, almost anyone has sort of a responsibility to be like a parent figure to a child character. So they immediately can bounce off every single character in a narrative. Now, I know some children aren't necessarily wild monsters, but I don't know how to write them, so.
Rachel, do you have additional thoughts on that? Or maybe if you want to talk about The Wizerd, your perception, or your perception of what Wallace's character and or the trope of petulant children says about Old Dirty Sweater?
I mean, it definitely speaks to Sweater and their upbringing. As somebody who was a good kid and caused no trouble, the idea of, you know, I'll say chaotic neutral children, is not something that I ever experienced firsthand. I think it's something I'm learning to be more like and enjoy in my adulthood. And for that, like, I really appreciate a character like Wallace, because they're free to say and do whatever pops into their head, and they follow their heart and their instincts. And I think that that's a fantastic thing for anyone to be able to do at such a young age. Whereas I was probably more, and probably am more, like the Wizerd or Archer, where they're a little more reserved and think before they act. And in Archer's case, just like very, very second guessing before they step forward at all, is very much how I was when I was Wallace's age. You know, so Wallace is a breath of fresh air for me. And I think that, yeah, I understand why she maybe grates on the Wizerd or maybe even some adult readers, but you know, I think it's all good, and I love Wallace.
Yeah, I love Wallace.
We did have one review on some website that was just like, Wallace is the most annoying character ever in a comic, which that means I think that means we did a good job.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, the internet. What is that?
Yeah.
Who are those people? Who are those people on the internet?
I mean, they read my book. I didn't read theirs.
True. True.
So.
Yeah, absolutely true. So as we've established, Frankie's kind of, you know, it's an autobiographical comic about you, Mike, and Frankie the cat. And I'm curious if there was ever that fulcrum of, you know, choosing to not put something in the book. You know, was there stuff that was, you know, I'm not that I'm asking for details or something to pry. I just mean that's something that a lot of people, I mean, I've made journal comics, and it's something a lot of people struggle with, of like, where's the line for what the character Rachel is going to show people, and then where's the line for you, the human Rachel?
Yeah, I think that I'm pretty forthcoming in it. Like even in small ways, like I show my body hair in it rather than just like oversimplifying and having, you know, cartoon Rachel just be cartoon Rachel. It's a little bit closer to me than something completely abstract. I did actually have one strip, like most of the things that were cut from the book or haven't been drawn yet are simply due to length. They're more like stories rather than like, you know, short bite-sized, you know, moments. But there was one real life thing that happened where Frankie threw a toy into the shower. And I thought that was hilarious. And I started actually drawing it. And even though like you were only seeing me from like my shoulders up and then like my feet with the toy, I got the whole thing penciled and then went, oh wait, no, this is maybe like too much. Like maybe people don't need to see this in like a cat comic. It's one thing for us to all be in the shower, dressed, bathing her. It's different for me to be showering and then have an incidental cat thing happen. It was almost like the reverse. It was a journal comic that happened to have Frankie. It wasn't a Frankie comic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I really liked about the Wizerd is the fact that I can see both of you guys in the drawings, you know, like especially the big crowd scenes or the monster, you know, like there's that one guy, they go into the bar and there's like that, is he a bat or an orc guy? He's got like a giant head and then he's got like a conjoined twin who's like wearing stilts and he's like a little tiny person. Like
it's in the jail lunch line. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I loved seeing those intricate, weird, cool, quirky characters where I could kind of see, like I can see Mike's underdrawing and then I can see you kind of taking the shapes and firming it up and kind of sculpting everything, you know? And I was just curious
completely
if like
restructuring and fixing things.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it feels like it has a nice sense of girded kind of strength to the drawings. And I'm curious about like, when did you guys figure out that you could do that, or like, was that just you kind of figured it out over the course of the book, or just, I don't know, curious about that general process.
Mike? Okay.
Because you cleaned it up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think we ever had an official like conversation about it. I think like pretty early on, like almost, I guess at the very, very beginning, Mike hit me up and asked about the very opening page of the book and was like, well, what do you think about this angle for the castle? And I said, oh no, I think I'd do it this way, and gave him something totally dramatic that wasn't necessarily accurate to the book's emotion. And then he sent me the first batch of pencils and I went, oh wait, well, you know, I'm noticing some stuff I would want to fix. Do you want me to just ink it as is? And he went, do whatever you want. And so then I started redrawing things, but I would text and be like, well, is this okay? Well, how about this? And then as
Did I ever say no?
I don't think so. And I think I figured that out like early on. I think it was mostly like I would redraw Wallace's face and I'd go, is this the emotion that you meant? You know, or when she's tied up to the trough and then does the handstand, the way you'd originally drawn that sequence, I had no idea what was happening in it. And I had to ask, I had to be like, okay, wait, what's happening here? And then I redrew it. You know, but you know, I'm mostly trying to, you know, stay true to what Mike is penciling, while also like making it technically accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when the book was being pitched, all I knew was I wanted to work on something with Rachel, and Rachel's better at drawing than me. So it was basically out the gate, any fixes that were going to be made, were going to be fine. There's a couple spots in the book where I was looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, I really nailed that pose. And then I would like look at a leg kick back and there was perspective. I'm like, wait, you didn't draw that, Michael. You don't know, you couldn't draw that right now.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of like impact areas between two characters where they're impacting and it looks really good. And like either their hands are clasping or, you know, a shirt is being grabbed or somebody's being pushed. And it's just like, I look at that and it's like, that's not how I drew that. So
I did fix a lot of hands, especially in the first half of the book. I think
they're hard to draw.
Yeah. Well, you would sort of, it's funny because I could tell when you just got tired of doing it and you were just like, meh. And I was like, okay, wait, that I can't let that slide. Like I have to actually like draw that hand. But as the book went on, like you really found your footing in drawing the characters, and like as for the second half of the book, like there really wasn't much that I had to fix, like because you figured it out.
Well, I didn't figure it out. What I did was there's like a panel early on of Wallace jumping over a log.
Mm-hmm.
And I printed that out, that redrawing you did of Wallace, and I was looking at that when I was drawing the pages later. So yeah, I figured it out.
Yeah, you took the drawings that we did and you made a character sheet, as one usually does, and then you referenced it. That's great. I'm so glad.
Yeah. I'm a professional cartoonist who does things the way everybody is supposed to do them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In closing for this segment, this will be the last question for now, and then we're gonna play a little game, and then we're gonna open it up for questions. Rachel, it's a very serious moment where I'm gonna ask you a very serious question. I need you to give me the truthful answer. So, recently there was a very high-profile movie that chose to digitally remove the buttholes from all the cats in the movie Cats. You, Rachel, are a courageous artist of the highest caliber, and you chose to draw Frankie's butthole on like every page in Frankie Comics. It's not a question, more of a thank you, and also to say, how does it feel to be someone fighting for cat butthole representation?
Oh, I mean, Dave, you've known me for many, many years. You know I am all about that cat butt. And I will talk about it. It's on the dolls that I made. If anyone who has a Frankie doll, pick it up right now and flip it over. You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I appreciated it. I appreciated it. Every page, I was just like, "Fuck yeah, Rachel!"
Look,
Plant that
cats
flag.
communicate in very specific ways. One of those ways is by showing you their butthole. Therefore, every drawn cat must have a butthole. Otherwise, it can't say like half the things it needs to say.
I mean, it is.
Jim Davis is wrong.
Chef
Cats
kiss
don't have
emoji.
eyebrows.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
What else are they going to use?
Exactly.
So there's two ways we could say this. We can do this. So I've got a couple questions here. There's not a ton, but basically my thought is that I'm going to ask these questions, and then either you guys can write down the answers, and then we'll reveal and see who wins the prize of the love and respect of everyone on this Zoom call from now until eternity, or you can just yell them
I mean, I'm happy to just yell things out.
at me.
Which one do you think is
Whoever
better?
goes
Because I
first
do have a
and
pen and paper.
Yeah,
All
like
right,
I can
so-
make this happen.
I think yelling is probably better just
Okay.
because it's quicker and more energetic.
Okay.
Okay, let's do it.
So I'm going to ask these questions. Some of them are for both of you.
Steve
some of them
Ditko.
are- I actually did have a couple questions about Ditko in my outline that I didn't ask for the sake of time because.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Don't you think I didn't notice that Steve Ditko call out when they first go into what's it called, Keth, whatever the name of the town
Tent.
is. Well,
It's tent.
Tent. Oh, see, I know this. I know this.
Yeah.
I noticed the graffiti, Mike. Come on.
That was for you, Davy Baker.
All right. Hey. All right. So these initial questions are about how well do you each know the books that you've worked on. Question number 1, and whoever says this first wins this round. How many pages is the Wizerd?
142.
141. I looked at the thing right before we started.
You're closer, Mike.
Price is right.
Yep.
Wait, you can't print a book with 141 pages?
It's listed as 144, but that's including the back matter.
Yeah. The actual sequential pages stop at 141.
That's true.
Which is that is the rubric that I've used for both. This one is going to be harder because I'm not necessarily convinced that Mike, you're going to know this, but we're going to ask anyway. Mike and Rachel, same question. What about Frankie Comics? How many pages is it?
163.
136 ish. 132. 138.
So close. It's 138.
Yeah. 138.
Yeah. Very, very close.
Yeah.
Very, very close. Mike, what is Rachel's favorite food?
Is it bimbap?
I mean, like, I would totally go eat some. I don't know that that's my favorite.
Is it pizza?
It's not pizza.
I didn't think it was pizza. That just feels like a basic answer.
That's Mike's favorite food.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Rachel, do you have a favorite food?
I mean, I'm prone to dessert. Like, I would traditionally say ice cream. If you're forcing me to choose food, I would choose like sushi.
Okay.
But the answer is really ice cream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rachel, what is Old Dirty Sweater's favorite mid-2000s emo band?
Oh,
Did I break up?
you did break up, which is why it took us a second. But I did hear you. The question was mid-2000s
Oh, okay.
emo.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of a joke answer, and I have so many. Can I just say a joke answer?
Mhm.
Yeah, say it. Yeah.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind is Midtown, and that's not right.
No. No.
Mike, can you guys hear my mic
Yes.
laughing?
Yeah. What's the answer, Sweater? What's the answer?
If we're talking about the kind of emo I think you're talking about,
Yeah.
it would be Anthony Green era Seosin.
All right.
Oh, okay. All
But-
right.
Show me your booty hole.
Huh? Yeah.
Seoshin. Yeah.
Huh?
Show me your booty
Wait,
hole.
what?
Seoshin.
I'm not saying it like that.
That's how it's pronounced.
Like,
I'm not
you know
doing
this
it.
podcast.
Wait, is
Not
it really
happening.
pronounced like that? Is it really pronounced like
Yeah,
that?
that's how it's pronounced.
That's
I've
according to
always
Anthony
said it the
Green.
way Sweater said it.
According to Anthony Green. Okay, hold on. Everybody, guest star, Michael Lopez.
Hi. That's according to
Wow.
Anthony Green.
You could be wrong about
Initially.
one or two things.
I think after a while, he got tired of trying to correct anyone, and he just went with it. So yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
we're both right.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
It's a
I'm reeling from that answer.
Everyone,
Yep.
Frankie Thunderkitten. Oh, Dave.
I'll be honest. I don't know what to do with this Seo shit information.
I'm sorry, dude.
It's Buddhist for little heart.
Oh
It's
boy.
Buddhist for little heart.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Now we got Davy Baker.
Oh. Well, hey. So, moving through this quickly as possible so I don't freeze again, we can move to questions. If there was a Frankie and or Wizerd crossover, who would win in a fight, Frankie or Wizerd?
Frankie.
It's Frankie. The Wizard isn't allowed to win.
Yeah.
Narratively.
right. And finally, both at the same time, what is Princess Wallace's favorite color?
Red.
I was going to say green.
I think it's red. Maybe it's like a greenish
there you
red.
go.
Brown.
Yeah, brown. It's like it's bruised brown. Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Greenish red might be a joke in the third Wizard book. So.
I expect an asterisk and a little thank you, Dave, for that one. So let's open this up for any listener questions that anybody has. And I guess
You
go
can
to the
just pop
chat.
those in the chat.
Yeah, there's a chat thing. If you want to type in there, you can. Legally, you're allowed. We've opened it. We've
Carlos
unlocked
says
it.
Jim Davis is wrong on a t-shirt, and I would definitely wear that.
Ignore that last question. I'm not allowed to answer that in public.
Somebody in the chat asked Mike about his thoughts on Cerebus, which is not a question that
We should kill Dave Sim, and if you're interested in making comics, you should try to read Cerebus. And if you have no interest in the craft, you should just don't worry about it. Don't even Google it.
Avi asks, how was working with Jim Davis on Garfield? And it was fine. It was good. That was the one note that I got, was that there was a panel where Garfield turned around away from the viewer and I drew Garfield's butthole. And the one note that Jim Davis sent me was, can we please remove the sphincter? Was the one note that I got from Jim Davis. And so if you ever see my original pencils for that page, Garfield does indeed have a butthole. But in the final art for that backstory for Garfield, sadly, Garfield is sans anus.
He's buttholeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that was said over the last hour that would have helped context for. It's just assumed that if you know Rachel Dukes, you're aware of the Garfield incident.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the notorious Garfield incident.
To answer Amanda's question, my wonderful, amazing editor, Amanda, she asks who owns the original, and I'm not sure that anyone actually owns it yet. It may be sitting in a folder on my bookshelf. I'll let you know. Guy wants to see Garfield's butthole. I don't think it's going to show up on camera. I promise it's there. Okay, wait. I'm going to walk away for a second. You guys vamp. I'm going to see if I can find you all Garfield's butt.
Someone in the chat typed in all caps, "Show us the butthole, you coward."
Honestly, I am ecstatic about how this Q&A is going, because can you think of a single Q&A posted to YouTube where somebody says, "Show us the butthole, you coward"?
Okay.
You're doing it right.
Unlike
one
the
of the
butthole
questions
cut
in
of
the-
cats, I will cave to pressure. and I will show everyone the butthole.
Somebody else in the chat asked, how long did the books take to produce?
I won't talk about it.
Working on both books simultaneously took about 1.5 years. I'll say that much.
The Wizerd should have maybe taken 6 months, maybe. And it took much longer because I'm not a smart man. Also,
That's not true.
I took a bunch of jobs and tried to do a bunch of other stuff at the same time, which I'm legally not allowed to do anymore.
I have some sad news to announce. The original page of Garfield with the butthole on it has been purchased by someone, and I don't know where it is now. You know what? Actually, Sweater, it might be you.
This is going to be amazing if it is.
Okay.
Avi says that they might have it.
Is it this one?
Yes, that is it right there.
Oh!
That is
Which
it.
panel is it? Oh! Oh! Wait. I can't see my own camera.
That's it. You've got it. You've got it.
Oh!
Okay, wait. Okay, wait. That's the inks. That's the final. Wait. Give me that. Okay, behind that. Pull that Bristol page out. Pull the Bristol page out. And there's the page of pencils behind it.
Oh! I got a
Okay, now
picture.
show us that same panel. There you go. There you go, everybody. We did it.
Wow. I can't believe I had this one.
Oh, man.
I'm going to frame the pencils, not the inks.
Amazing. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, on the note of like how their journal comics used to be like Chris Ware, like this is a journal comic of theirs that I also bought, and it's just like 1 million tiny panels. It's like, I like these a lot.
I really like
They're definitely
that comic, actually. I feel like it doesn't get enough love that it deserves.
I like this one and the one about going to the mountain.
Yeah, same era. Yeah, I drew those around the same time. I'm not sure where the original for that one is.
Well, since I can't see the chat, is there any substantial other questions?
There's still a lot of yelling about Garfield's butthole.
It's just a lot of butthole.
David asks, are Silver Sprocket books still flowing north to the Beguiling? I wonder, should we bring Avi in to answer that? Special guest, like Avi Ehrlich.
Unmute. And
yeah.
How do I turn on my camera?
We need vid.
There we go. Everyone, Avi. Avi runs Silver Sprocket, who publishes Mike's books. I'm in their anthologies. We are good friends. They are sponsoring tonight's live chat. Avi Ehrlich, everyone.
They paid the more than 40-minute Zoom fee.
Oh my God. No, I think Rachel did. You can get all of our books at the Beguiling, and you can get the Beguiling's books at our shop in San Francisco that we just opened back up 2 weeks ago. So we have everybody's books everywhere, forever.
Beautiful. Thank you, Avi.
Love it.
Do we want to rapid fire what's left?
Oh.
And then call it?
In the chat, okay. So for their part in sponsoring us, Silver Sprocket has offered a gift pack of Frankie Comics, The Wizerd, Dave's books, I'm not sure which ones, the signed book plates, bookmarks, and other fun stuff from our friends at Silver Sprocket. If you are interested in entering a raffle to win those things, please fill out this Google form that I'm putting in the chat. We are going to read some more questions from the chat. That will give you 10 minutes. How does everyone feel about that? To enter your name and email. Nicole asks, any friction from loss of control in splitting the workload in the drawings for The Wizerd?
No. I don't care. It's better.
Yeah. And that's something that when we signed on for this project or first started talking about doing it, you know, Mike said, I hate inking. And I said, well, I love inking. And so we're playing to our strengths. That makes it really easy. Mike, you know, thinks up, you know, most of the layouts and does the pencils, and then I just have to fix them and then ink it. And it's so much easier. And it gives us the opportunity to go crazier, like with spreads and like, oh my God, in the first couple of pages of the book, there's that one panel that has that teeny tiny staircase in it with a jillion stairs that I actually like did the correct perspective and stuff on. That's not stuff that either of us would normally do. And so splitting the workload like gives us the opportunity to go a little crazy, which I think is to everyone's benefit.
I also think I had set up a perspective grid in one of the programs and did it right. And then you're like, this is not even close. So
you do
it's good that things get to go through.
In 2-point perspective when you should be doing it in 3-point perspective.
I don't know what that means.
I know. I just go in and fix it. It's a problem that I have too personally. So when I see it in the Wizerd pencils, I know exactly what it is and how to fix it. So it's fine.
I'll learn what that means.
Avi asked, how fleshed out are the future Wizerd books? Where is it going? Answer that as much or as little as you want to, Mike.
So I've got a few different arcs in mind. Theoretically, we could do this for a while. It basically depends on if people buy them and they like them. I'm an improvisational writer. I generally will go into a book with, I have generally an idea that's, when I have an idea for a book, I like to have it be like a sentence or two that is structured kind of like a joke, where in the description you're setting up an idea and then how it ends is generally like uses that information to make a new piece of information. And then I just go into the book with that and just do things as I go. And, you know, the first book is nothing like the description. So, but it's better than the original description, honestly. The original description wasn't as good as the one that it is. So like I have a very long arc with like, this is this book, this is this book. There's like a section where the wizard quits and stays on a beach while they're on a boat going to like some islands, theoretically, if it gets there. And like the archer takes his cloak, or their cloak. Takes the
wizard's cloak.
Yeah, takes the wizard's cloak. And like, so like it's there, but any of it could change because at the end of the day, I just want to sit down and draw comics. And what comes out that day that I feel the most confident with is always the best thing, regardless of what the plan is. So that might have been too much answer.
No, I think that's perfect.
No,
that's great.
That's I mean, when I write for other people, I write full, you know, panel by panel scripts. But when I write for myself, I kind of write the same way, where it's probably a little bit more than you, where there's like a vague, this is what this issue is going to be, and these are the beats in the issue. And then I get into it and I'm like, I don't want to fucking draw that. Who the fuck? What? A prison escape? That sounds awful. I'm going to just draw people sitting around a table talking. Oh, and this guy have a robot arm. Oh yeah, more robot arms. What if this guy had 8 robot arms? Like, you know? Yeah.
I mean, I kind of feel like just whatever feels the best is probably the best, regardless of what the plan is. The ending I have written is going to be the ending, though. I think Rachel knows that.
I do know, yeah.
And I think like 3 or 4 other people might know it. But there is an ending that structurally works very well. And when you start something, you know the ending because the beginning and the ending should always play off each other in a very specific way of like a story. I use the word should loosely because almost nobody does it. But if it's good, that's like generally a component of that. So the ending is, but how it gets there honestly doesn't even matter. So.
Nicole asks, how do you sell a book/work with an editor without a full script?
Too much confidence, not understanding you're supposed to have a script.
I mean, I think it also helped that you'd been working with the publisher previously, and so they knew you and your style and your voice, and maybe everybody was a little bit overconfident in going, oh well, we can sell whatever Mike wants to pitch to us, regardless of whether or not he has it written.
The strength of my work generally isn't the full pitch, it's the point of view and the, like, you know, no matter what I do, like, genre to me is essentially costume. Like, all of my books are basically this, you know, they're not the same, but like they're gonna be similar, and if you like one, you're gonna like all of them, unless you're only into the aesthetic of the, like, if you only like westerns, that's not true. But if, like, I do a sci-fi, or I do, like, my Slacker comics are, the tone is the same as the Wizerd.
Mm-hmm.
All of my comics are Slacker comics. But yeah.
But typically, like, that's not a typical experience. Like, most publishers, unless they're super familiar with your work, are not going to buy a project on pitch alone, which I think is really what I was getting at, was that you had previously worked with the publisher, and not having a script ended up being a hurdle. And most publishers will maybe buy on a pitch and the first 30 pages written. So that way it's either at least started, or they get to know your voice better. I feel like Dave should maybe, like, jump in here as somebody who has sold more books than Sweater and I combined, I imagine.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I think that was a very eloquent description. I mean, the thing that I sold to Simon and Schuster was basically that. It was 5, 7, 10 pages of art and 20-ish pages of script and an outline of the whole book and kind of character descriptions of, like, oh, look, this is what it is. This is what this comes over here, goes over there, blah, 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 blah. And honestly, I think the reason we really sold it was the person asking this question, Nicole, drew those pages and is a very impressive illustrator. And so that art went a long way to communicate the tone and style and feel of the work. So you could look at the kind of brief snapshot or, like, trailer of that script and be like, oh, I can pair these two things together in my head, and Nicole's work, it speaks more than just reading a script. Like, I think a lot of times comic scripts are like, they're just blueprints to build a house, and it's really in the actual, like, stacking of those bricks over time that the full totality of the work comes through. And that's why I think it's so important, and I wish there were more cartoonists that work like the way Mike was describing, because you find things along the way that you wouldn't have. You figure things out, you build a visual vocabulary of the universe and the narrative mechanics within a book in a different way than shot calling it, you know, of like, this is what the book's going to be. Look over there, it's going to be 9-panel grids. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, 9-panel grids, I don't want to draw this. Or that's not the strong suit of your artist or whatever.
Also, there's a lot of examples in the history of comics of two people drawing the same script, and, like, they're completely different stories, even though it's the exact same words. Like, the comics is very specific. And, like, yeah, a script is, I'm not going to say a script is useless, but it's, like, not the most, I can't read a script for a comic and tell you if it's going to be a good book or not. I don't think that's possible. So.
But what about Alan Moore? What about Warren Ellis and Rick Remender? What about everybody who thinks that writers are the kings of the comic book world?
Well, I don't know who Rick Remender is, and I've never read a Warren Ellis book. So that joke is just purely about the fact that there is, for some reason, we've been living in 20 years of everyone pointing to the fact that the writer is king. Which is just so silly to me, because it's and they come from illustrators. They're all about visual language. And I'm not saying that a writer isn't important in that process. If I thought that, I wouldn't be one. But there's
there's something so intrinsically endemic to the medium that comes from the hand of an individual building a universe line by line. And you just, it's not the same thing as writing, and then he walked into a room and then he said this and then he went over there, next panel. Like, it's just, they're just apples and oranges. Steps down off of street preacher platform, takes off cultist robe, fades into the crowd.
Nicole expands upon her question and says, what was the working relationship with your editor? And or were you kind of just on your own and the edits came at the end?
I'm ungovernable.
That's part of it, for sure. But part of it too was we did the first half of the Wizerd before the Lionforge Oni merger, and then the second half of the Wizerd after the merger. So we had two different editors on the project, and our first editor was Andrea, who was the VP at Lionforge, and due to those responsibilities was largely unavailable and trusted Mike to do whatever he wanted. And then when we started on the second half of the book, we were working with Andrea's assistant editor, Grace, who is now our full-time editor on the project. And by then, you know, the book was halfway or 2/3 done. And basically the only thing that she could come in and edit was dialogue at that point, because she wasn't going to ask us to do redraws. Moving into Wizerd Book 2, Grace has been a little bit more hands-on in the beginning. Like, for instance, she just got us notes on the initial thumbnails and script. So Book 2 is going to be a lot different from Book 1. Book 1, we were kind of left to our own devices. Book 2, we have some feedback, but it's not like Grace is coming in and saying it's my way or the highway or anything like that. Like, it's an open conversation, and Mike can take Grace's and my feedback, you know, with a grain of salt, should he choose
Assuming
to.
I'm going to take it across the board.
Grace and I said pretty much the same thing. I don't know if you've read the PDF yet, but, you know, anything that we said can pretty much be fixed in dialogue, you know. I think it's great.
Also,
I'm looking forward to working on it.
The way I work, it's good to have other eyes on it, because like I do revise as I'm drawing a lot, but since I do work so improvisationally, a lot of the times I'll kind of miss how certain things interact with each other over the whole course of, you know, 100 pages. And like, it's good to have people be like, hey, these things are somewhat related. You want to point that out in your book? So
Do you lay out pages? Like, do you put them on the floor and stand over them and like look at how the page turns work?
So I do everything digitally now. Well, I do the whole writing process digitally, but I have a PDF with 140 pages in spreads in one file, in rows of 20 pages. So I just kind of zoom in, zoom out, and I hate working
That's
digitally.
essentially the same thing.
Yeah. I hate working digitally, but it's actually, I'm probably going to maintain this for my writing process. Also, like when I write, I will often rewrite the same thing multiple times without noticing, just like because I work pretty frantically and manically. And this working in the single file, unlike the first book, means I don't rewrite anything. Like in the Wizerd, I penciled probably like, there's a pretty large sequence in the third act of 12 to 20 pages that I completely penciled twice and didn't notice. So this is better. Yeah.
Dave, do you have any questions that you want to
How are we
end
feeling?
on?
One more.
Go ahead.
I'll ask the last question. Sure. So I guess my thoughts are, one, I love both of these pieces of work. I think they're consummate, and I think the two of you should be very proud. I know that comics is not often rewarding, and you spend years working on something and it comes out and like 4 people go, oh, that was cool. But I'm telling you, as a fellow cartoonist, I hope that you pat yourselves on the back and take a victory lap, because the fact that both of these books were produced is a Herculean effort, and it's very, very cool to see. And as my final question, I will ask Mike and Rachel, if you could put a cat butthole on any inanimate object in your house, what would it be on?
Like a functioning one or a decorative one?
It's up to you. Whatever you're gonna say. The
I mean,
Rorschach
like,
test. It tells
just
me
like a
about you.
decorative asterisk. Huh.
I'm thinking it's got to be somewhere no company would ever see it.
See, I'm thinking I want it somewhere that I see it every day.
Ugh.
But I mean, if it's just a decorative asterisk, not like a photorealistic cat butt.
Yeah, no, I'm picturing it as like the way you draw Frankie's.
Oh, that could go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
that'd be my little secret. I'd probably
Yeah,
put it
like-
on the tablet, just right there.
Like I was
Mhm.
thinking like maybe like on my front door where like a peephole would go, or like maybe on my mirror so I see it in the morning.
Both solid
Yeah.
choices. Before we go, do both of you want to tell people on the internets, and by internets I mean YouTube later when this gets reposted there, where people can find you on the internet?
Yes, first things first. I need Sweater to pick a number between 1 and 8.
8.
Travis Nichols, you just won a bunch of stuff from Silver Sprocket. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us here in the live stream. And I will give Avi your contact information. They will be in touch and send you your goods. Yes. So now we'll do outros. Michael, do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay. As I hope you know by now, my name is Rachel Dukes. I'm a cartoonist. I live in LA. You can find my cat-centric work and all my other work online at mixtapecomics.com. I'm across social media at Mixtape Comics. You can also read the original archive of Frankie Comics, which looks different than what's in the book that I hope you have in your hands right now, at frankiecomics.com. And if you don't have your copy of Frankie Comics yet, you can acquire one with a signed bookplate and bookmark from Silver Sprocket. That's silversprocket.net. If you don't want extra cool free stuff, you can also buy Frankie Comics at your local bookstore, not Barnes & Noble, by going to bookshop.org or indiebound.com, and they will tell you where you can find Frankie Comics near you.
Do we have beef with Barnes & Noble?
They just don't have Frankie in the stores for some reason.
You. Such nobility, huh?
Yeah.
Such
right, well-
barns. Such
well, I'm
palpable
Mike-
barns.
I'm Michael Sweater. You can find me on the internet at michaelsweater.com or at Michael Sweater on Instagram. Soon coming to another social media platform near you, but right now just Instagram because I'm drawing. I don't got time for the typing. And you can buy the Wizerd from Barnes & Noble.
It is available in store at 45 locations in the greater Los Angeles area.
Really?
Mhm.
Did they actually do a good job with this?
They did a really good job with the Wizerd. They dunked up on Frankie big
Cool.
time.
Hey.
But you know what is great? Actually, all of my family who is here in the chat right now all went to their local Barnes & Nobles in person and purchased the Wizerd and sent me pictures.
Well, I don't go outside, so I don't know what's happening in any of these stores.
I only know
Dave
because my
Baker.
family still goes out. Thank you, everyone.
Dave Baker, would you please tell us where to find you on the web?
Dave, our glorious host, who spent
Oh,
so much
right.
time reading our books and scripting us questions and being a general delight here with all of us this evening. Please
Davey
tell our
Bakey.
viewers where they can find you and your books.
Thank you. You can find me at heydavebaker.com or on Instagram and everywhere else at xdavebakerx. Yeah, I'm around. I'm around in places. You know, I'm easy to find. Or you can listen to my podcast, Deep Cuts, which is a narrative explainer podcast hosted by myself and Andrew Price. where we pick a topic and walk you through the ins, outs, and nitty gritty so you can appear like an interesting and idiosyncratic person at your next forced social function.
It's very good.
I love it.
I hate listening to podcasts by people I know because I feel like I'm being a creep, but it's so good that I still listen to it. So
I look forward to it every week. It's honestly, Dave, it's what I do every Wednesday. I put it on and just spend my whole Wednesday listening to you and Andrew talk for like 4 hours. And it's so funny because during this talk tonight, I almost went, oh, did you know this story? And I was about to tell you something from your own podcast. So I'm not going to do that. But for anyone out there, if you're a podcast person, like check out Deep Cuts because it is so good. Very enjoyable. Highly recommend.
Yeah. I don't know how you have time to draw comics doing actual research. Oh,
I don't know how to do anything, man. My wrist clicks because all I do is draw and type and draw and type, and it's not good.
I'm gonna send you some
stretches. I recommend the Andrew WK episode that is absurdly long.
It's like 4 hours.
It's so long. I thought there was an upload error. When I saw that, I was like, oh, it's going to be like 2 hours with 2 hours of dead air on it. And it's just so long.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think we did it, guys.
I love you. Thank you, everybody who showed up. And thank you to everybody who sees this on YouTube later.